Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Your call is now in session. We want to have a sample of your views in regards to this topics we had the chance to discuss in today's edition of Inside Politics. Right into it, Simiyu Nicholas is calling us from Nairobi. Simiyu, a very good afternoon to you. What say you? Good afternoon, Simiyu.
Yes, please.
Yes, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
What are your views?
Yes, I remember very well during the constitutional review process of 2010, I presented a very comprehensive paper on devolution of finance. Hello?
Yes, kindly continue.
I presented a paper on devolution of finance, and the main issue I came up with setting up a fourth arm of government, a constitutional arm of government, apart from the judiciary, the legislature, and the executive, that we should have the finance. We should be a fourth arm of government. Now, this would involve setting up a KRA, a national KRA, with somebody now in in charge of finance. Just like we have the Chief Justice, and we have the President, and we have the other arm of government. So that in charge of finance controls all the finance, and treasury finance should not be under the executive. So that now, whereas the judiciary has its role, the legislature has its role, and so is the executive, we should have the finance. So that the finance is not controlled by the executive, neither is it controlled by judiciary. So in that kind of situation, the powers of the president, the powers of the executive, the powers of the chief justice will not interfere with the finance. So that when a budget is developed at the county level, we have county revenue with the whole finance controlling it. So central revenue and local revenues are all controlled by a separate body called the finance. And therefore, the finance will not release any money at all unless it's approved by the respective parliament, or maybe the assembly. So in that case, the issue of theft, the issue of corruption will not arise, because funds will not be released or controlled by any other arm of government. And that was a proposal which was trashed out because they said it will remove all the powers from the president. And I think no one will want to be president if he has his hands in treasury. And that was a proposal intended to control the economy in terms of theft and so on of funds.
All right. Many thanks, Simiyu Nicholas. A point right there we'll definitely try and take a look at. Let's talk to Rajab Onwasi right now from Mumias. Rajab, good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you, Jesse.
Good afternoon. What's your take?
First of all, I want to congratulate the panel.
All right.
And two, I want to say that you cannot stop the politicians from talking about the BBI, because relevance in politics depends on current issues.
All right.
The current issue now is BBI, and also as a Western region, we are very much concerned about the collapse of our economies. So that we cannot talk about anything else apart from that.
All right, Rajab, before you continue, kindly lower the volume of your television.
To interrogate.
All right. Okay, thank you so much, Rajab. We'll definitely continue sampling this. Our next caller, I believe it's Enoch Ngetich from Elgeyo Marakwet. Enoch, how are you this afternoon?
I'm fine.
All right, what's your take?
So I have one question about PPI.
Okay.
My question is.
Kindly continue.
On PPI, the most likely casualties of this PPI is President Kenyatta Big Four agenda. of affordable housing, healthcare for all, promotion of agriculture and manufacturing, which the president has met the counter-piece of his second term. While no one really knows what the president and the Odinga agreed on before the handshake last year, March. So, if this was the central core for the handshake, what will be the future about PBI when does not go on a referendum way? This is because Raila needs to referendum to meet the people.
Can you continue? Yes.
So because Raila needs a referendum to meet the people over his journey to State House 2022. What will it happen when the BPI does not go in a referendum way?
All right, we get the question. Thank you so much, Enoch Ngetich, calling us right there from Marakwet. Let's shift gears over to Nakuru right now, where Enoch Onkoba is on the line. Enoch, good afternoon. What do you have for us?
Good afternoon, Jesse. How are you?
Very fine, thank you.
I say hi to the panel as well.
Well received.
and allow me to start with the BBI.
Yes.
And then therein I'll also give my views on about Sonko and Matiang'i.
All right.
First of all, I'd like to say openly that I support the idea of the BBI, but not the steps taken towards making the idea work. I've read the report, I'll say that, but I'll criticize at some point and that whatever issues that are addressed in there are in the constitution that we have we've had since 2010. So I find it that the problem the country faces right now is not lack of a good constitution or lack of a good law therein, but lack of constitutionalism. And I don't see the BBI initiative being a solution to the problems we have if we're not going to solve the problem of the leaders that we have in place failing to adhere to the rule of law. All the proposals therein, you look at their proposal on devolution, it is addressed in Chapter 11, their proposal on national resource and everything is in Article 10 and Chapter 6 of our Constitution. All these things, the structure of government, because they're not bringing us a pure parliamentary, they're bringing us a pure presidential.
All right.
But even the way they are structuring the prime minister is just dwelling, and the majority lead in the National Assembly. So,
all right.
I don't think it's yes, Jesse.
Allow me to interject. I'm curious, what's your take on Sonko and Matiang'i as well?
The issue of Matiang'i, I don't know. There's a law that was proposed some times back of stopping public officials from attending to Harambee. I don't know where that law went to, because people who are public officers should show the face of the country, and when they're addressing themselves to the public, they should address themselves to the public in a manner that depicts the offices they hold.
All right.
But what they did there, and I don't want to talk too much about it, it was not, it was non-state.
All right.
On the issue of Sonko, the manner in which he was arrested, I find myself sympathize with this country, because if a governor of a county that is at the center of the economy of this country can be arrested in the manner that Sonko was, whether he resisted or not, it's illegal.
Okay.
And no citizen of this country should find himself being boxed by a police officer in uniform.
Thank you, Enoch. We'll definitely highlight that. Our last caller on the line, Karoli Kemboi from Kapsabet. Karoli, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Jesse.
Yes, kindly let us know what you think.
About something small, that's about the embezzlement of public funds.
Okay.
You see, Jesse, when I see my payslip and the much money that I surrender to the state every month, then I don't see a pipe water in my house. I don't see a good road to my house. I don't see a good, I don't see medicine in my local dispensary. Then I feel like I would rather remain with my tax. I don't remit the government. so that I look for a private practitioner to do these things for me and I pay them. Because in essence, that is the reason why a government exists, to be able to collect taxes on my behalf, but then at the same time give me services for the same. So if I see somebody said to have embezzled 357 million of the same money that me and Wanjiku and Moraz have needed to the state for the services to be given to us, and then we still say the same person should have been arrested honorably, there is no honor in a thief. So all these must be arrested no matter how they are, and they should actually, in some instances, be paraded in public for public shame, because there is no way I can become a governor and be in charge of taxes that people remit in goodwill to the state for us to give something to them and go ahead and embezzle it. I mean, that is total shame. That's my contribution.
All right. Karoli Kemboi, well received. Thank you so much, Karoli from Kapsabet. No honor among thieves, a question on the lack of constitutionalism in Kenya, and as well as the Big Four agenda being the major casualty of the BBI. Your take briefly as we conclude.
I think, Jesse, what we must continuously hammer into the minds of Kenyans is that, one, there is equality at law, or what we call equity at law. So whether I am a thief, I have defiled somebody, I have done all the horrible things, we have a law that treats us as so that when you are, until the court pronounces itself, we cannot sit somewhere and say because we are saying you stole somebody's money, what have you. What also Kenyans need to ask, our media and the levels of investigative journalism in this country, I think they are not there. This is why I'm saying so. Every time you report a corruption case, you report it on the above the roof numbers. But when everything comes home, you don't tell Kenyans how much was recovered later. Like now you are talking about 350 million that the case against Mike Sonko is worth. But the reality on the ground is that is the amount of the tendered, whatever was tendered. Look at the case of Kiambu, for example. The road that was constructed was worth 588, but the money for Waititu, the church, is 34 million. For Mike Sonko, I don't think it is more than 50 million. Right. So at times, it is also good so that Kenyans do not have higher expectations when the reality is that the money at the charge sheet is below, so that when the cases collapse, Kenyans think that the institutions are not doing a job, or Kenyans think that the judiciary is condoning corruption. Okay. And maybe to my final point, if in support of fighting corruption and fighting graft, I think as a country we must ask ourselves, is the current formula of fighting corruption sustainable? I don't think so. Right. Because fighting corruption should be just a matter of law. Okay. Drama, hubris, and razzmatazz should not have a space unless we act in a Hollywood movie.
Okay, let me cut you short.
I think one of the things that Kenyans must appreciate, that we must separate issues. The fact that there was a roughness to Sonko's arrest must be balanced out with the fact that the evidence points to the fact that he was resisting arrest and was probably a fugitive from the law. And we must recognize that. The second thing that we must also be clear about, I've had this conversation going around that somehow the Big Four agenda is going to suffer because of BBI. That is impossible. Just the other day, the president was launching a huge housing project somewhere in Ukambani, and that should tell Kenyans that the Big Four is entrenched in our budget. It's not going to change just because we're not talking about it all the time. You know, Kenyans think this country moves by talking. That's why politicians are always talking. No, there are actually people who actually get the job done, and one of the things that we must do is actually stick to getting the job done.
All right, Jerry Teach.
You know, as I said last week, and I'll say again, the BBI report talks about a trust deficit. In Kenya, we have a budget deficit, we have a leadership deficit. And so long as those two work hand in hand, it doesn't matter all the side shows that we are subjected to as Wakenya. BBI, Big Four, Vision 2030, so on and so forth. Look at our budget deficit right now. We are discussing 350 million, 588 million, 85 point something million, 8 million. whatever we're talking about in the energy sector, 100 billion shillings a year gone. We are so numb and desensitized. And as Kenyans, so long as we're not able to connect these huge amounts to how it is we are suffering on a daily basis. And I want to agree with one of my brothers who said the person in Kibra actually can connect it. But if we continue to allow ourselves to be distracted by the ongoing sideshows, where we go into factions and camps and we engage in negative ethnicity and so on and so forth, at the end of the day, we will be exactly where we started in 2022, in 2027, and going forward. So we must focus and remember not to be distracted by sideshows and be a country that wants to return to a space of integrity, something that I think we don't see in our leaders. So we as Kenyans sometimes forget that that should be the central pillar, and that is the deficit that we're suffering from.
Okay, dismiss briefly.
Yeah, two quick ones. Number one, as we wait to run around the BBI and whether or not it's going to be referendum or parliamentary, let's implement the 2010 constitution. Then number two, again, as we run around the BBI, let's focus on economics. Because Nafula in Kibera is not going to spend an entire day going through that BBI report on an empty stomach. So let's fix the economics. Our monetary policies have gone south, our fiscal policies have gone south, and that's the crux of the matter. We can dance around BBI, do a million pressers, but if you're addressing Moran and Nafula and Wanjiko on an empty tummies, it counts for zero.
All right. Dismas Mukua, thank you. Jerry Teach, it's always a pleasure. Mark Pichachi, and last but not least, Kipchumba Karuri. Thank you so much for your contribution on the show. Inside Politics, you've been watching it. Thank you so much as well for your contribution on social media and your call as well. We'll keep the conversation ongoing online. My name is Jesse Rogers. Stay with KTN News. Weekend at 1 up next.